All right. So, John, you've
Hmm.
been on the show before, and we talked
Yep.
about, your starting out days. You worked at Moody Radio. You were focused on the family. You did all kinds of work, I want to say, in the Protestant world. And then when you became Orthodox, you came over and, just remind me again, like what was it that got you going on Ancient Faith Radio? What made
Yeah.
you start Ancient Faith Radio?
Yeah. See, yeah, we have to go back to the spring of 2004. I was at a Touchstone conference. Touchstone, for those of you who don't know it, is a journal of mere Christianity. It is not specifically Orthodox, but they have Orthodox editors, Protestant editors, and Catholic editors. And it just represents classical Christianity and the best expression of the three traditions. So I was at the conference. I actually was the chairman of the board at that time of Touchstone. And a pastor, a Protestant pastor who was attending, who was a long time, very good friend of mine, even at my Moody days way back in the early 80s. Um, he was on a journey to Orthodoxy, and he parenthetically is now an Antiochian Orthodox priest, Father Wilbur Ellsworth. And then Pastor Wilbur Ellsworth said, John, you've got all these years of experience in radio. You've been, working at Moody Radio. You've worked at Focus on the Family. Isn't there a way you can use that experience for the Orthodox Church? And, my first response was, well, I wish that was possible, but in reality, there's no more radio stations that we can secure. I mean, all of the good frequencies in major markets are taken. You may be able to buy an FM station in a market the size of Chicago, but it's going to cost you $250 million, and maybe even more now. And so I didn't have any idea how. I loved the idea, and I was passionate about trying to figure it out, but I sure didn't know how to do it. But it troubled me, and I really tossed and turned. And Tanya and I talked about it the next day. So what could it be? And so the internet was certainly alive and well. It wasn't what it has become, for good or bad, but there were, you could do Google searches for online radio stations.
Sure.
And so I found this all Southern Gospel Quartet internet radio station. And I mean, and I knew some of these names, the Statesman Quartet, the Blackwood Brothers, and I was a fan back in my late teens and early 20s of Southern Gospel quartets. So I clicked on it, and they had an image on the screen with a curtain that opened up, and then you see this still silhouette of a quartet with microphones singing, and the station would start playing. So I listened to it for about a half hour. I thought, the quality of this is quite good. It was stereo, it wasn't noisy, it was clear. And then the announcer comes on to, promote you're listening to All Quartet Radio. And I thought to myself, I know that voice. And hanging around national religious broadcasters, you get to know virtually every Christian broadcaster there is. And I knew that voice was the voice of Carl Ramsey. So I contacted Carl, who was my old friend from NRB, and I said, Carl, come on, is that you? And he said, it sure is. And I said, well, you've got to tell me how you're doing this. I said, I have no clue. And so he graciously sent me several lists of software and hardware and a primer on how to get started in a very basic level. So, I mean, the whole thing looked like it was going to cost maybe around $3,000. And it's not money we had. So we decided to get a small second mortgage on our house and use that money to purchase some computers and microphones and an extra computer to stream onto. And so I got the software. Then we needed music. We didn't have any music. So I went to our church, which at that point was All Saints Antiochian Church in Chicago.
Right.
Father Pat Reardon was the priest. And I made an announcement at coffee hour. I said, I've got a crazy idea. It's not going to make sense to anybody, but I think we may be able to start our own Orthodox Christian radio station, but I need CDs. If any of you have Orthodox music, could you bring them to church next Sunday? I'm thinking, well, we may get 15 of them, and that'll give us a start. Well, don't you know, the next week, these people come in with shopping bags full of Orthodox music. And I mean, there had to be 200 CDs in there. And
Wow.
I mean, I was shocked. And so the term is you rip them into your computer. So you're basically digitizing a CD format, which was easy to do. And so now I've got a database of digital Orthodox music. I found the software that Carl recommended to actually stream. I found a service that you can buy slots. And so you can decide what the bit rate is, what quality do you want. You could be AM quality, AM station quality at 24-bit, or FM quality at 64-bit, or CD quality at 128 kilobits per minute. So I chose 64, and I chose 10 slots. So 10 people could listen to my station all at the same time, but no more. And so we got the music in there, I got the software, and I just hit the play button and just sent out an email to the church people. I said, here's the URL. Can anyone hear this? What does it sound like? So people called me, emailed, and said, wow, this sounds amazing. And I said, well, I think it's going to work, but we need to spread the word. So starting in our little parish, people just started sending emails and calling their friends, and I can watch, okay, I'm up to my 10 limit. So I needed to call the streaming service and I say, okay, I want to go from 10 to 25. And so within 3 days, the 25 were used up. And so I called them again. I said, I'm going to need 50. Within another 2 or 3 days, it's used up. And so I keep calling the streaming service back, and they said, we're hearing from you a lot, asking us to increase the number of slots. What's your format? And I said, well, we're playing the hits, the best hits of the 90s. And he said, oh, I love the 90s. And he started naming some groups from the 90s. I said, oh, no, the 90s. I said, this is ancient Christian music. And so, I mean, before long, we needed several hundred, and then even unlimited slots, and that's how it grew. It went on the air over Thanksgiving weekend, 2004, and it just kept growing. And then the costs, because those streaming slots are expensive, so we ask anybody who would like to donate. And so I got a call from a church secretary who said, hey, my pastor heard something on your station, and he wants to know how he can get a copy of that talk that you aired. Because I had connected with Orthodox Christian Cassettes, and they had sent me a library of lectures, Thomas Hopko, etc. And so I said, oh, yeah, so that was so-and-so giving a talk at St. Vladimir's or wherever. And I said, hey, so who's your pastor? Oh, you mean, no, I said, who's your priest? And because I didn't know. And she said, oh, you mean our pastor? It's Pastor Mark here at the Grace Baptist Church in, wherever. I said, wait a minute.
No way.
I have the pastor of this Baptist church now listening to us. And that just was the beginning. I started hearing from pastors who were in the closet, so to speak, listening and didn't dare let their parishioners know that they were addicted to this Orthodox teaching and music and were hungry for more. And so, lo and behold, some donations started coming in and we kept growing. And then I needed to be able to give tax deductible receipts for the donations because we were not a nonprofit. So I approached Father Pat and the parish council at All Saints and proposed to them that they bring Ancient Faith Radio under the church's umbrella as a ministry of All Saints Church. And they not only voted to do that without my requesting it, they voted to reimburse me for the initial investment. And I remember that meeting just like it was yesterday. And I wept. I mean, you just see that they believed that this was possible, and they made it possible. So, so we went that way for about a year, and I got a call from Father Peter Gilquist and Deacon Michael Hyatt. Deacon Michael was the chairman of the board of Conciliar Press. Father Peter was the missions and evangelism chair for the Antiochian Archdiocese and was kind of the person in charge of Conciliar Press. And they said, John, we want to propose a merger. We have heard about Ancient Faith Radio. We listen. We think that we could benefit each other by merging. So we went to our parish council, Father Pat, et cetera. They agreed. And I went to the Antiochian convention in Montreal in October, I think, or maybe July of 2008. And Charles Agelat and I chased around Metropolitan Philip all around the conference. And, and Father Charles is saying, Your Eminence, I really do want to take a few minutes and introduce you to John Maddex. Yes, Charles, we will do this. We will do this. So finally, on the last day, we had the meeting. And so, I mean, bless his heart, he didn't have a clue who I was or what I was doing. All he knew is that Charles and Father Peter Gilquist were behind this, and they want to merge. And therefore, if that's what they want, I bless this. And so we became a ministry of Conciliar Media Ministries, which was a department of the Antiochian Archdiocese. And I won't go into the detail of how they're set up because it's not a usual department. It's got independence. It's got its own 501c3. But we are loosely connected in the sense that the Antiochian Metropolitan approves board members. So if we have a new board member, we then give him the name and a resume, and then he'll just basically stamp it and say, yes, you may add that board member. So that's how we became part of Conciliar. And then in 2009, we changed the name to Ancient Faith Ministries, Ancient Faith Publishing, Ancient Faith Press. The board asked me to be the CEO of both. And that's kind of the history.